take two on this video. I'll get into why this is my second take in a little bit. But this video is not sponsored by PCBWay. However, the main channel video is. So they sent this to me for free. They're paying me to make the video. They did not send me all of this, but they sent me 5 of these guys. That is all they paid for. Let's start off by giving credit where credit is due. This is not my project. This is not my idea. I saw this in a YouTube video, specifically in this guy, Justin Garrison's video, where he made this just with a wire and a Pico microcontroller. That is all you actually need for this. I'm going to be doing it in a way that I think is a lot cleaner, but there are multiple ways you can do this. We'll get into it in a minute. So shout out to Justin Garrison. I just happened to come across this video on the YouTube homepage. It was recommended to me. Watched it. I'm like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. But after you go down and like his video, after you've watched it, you can go down to the description and you'll find the GitHub. And here's where you can find the multiple ways you can do it. This is the way we're doing it today, but you can also use this. You can apparently do it this way. And this might look different than just this, but I'm pretty sure these two are the same. This, if you haven't figured out by the title and thumbnail or watching my review on the main channel about this yet, this is something that allows us to make an original Xbox think that an Xbox One controller is like a Duke. But it's more than just that. Don't click away yet. That was the original theory for this project. But you can do this with so many more consoles now, so many more different controllers. And specifically, I want to be able to do this so I can use my DualSense with my PS3 because I don't like the DualShock 3. I don't like the DualShock 2. I don't like the DualShock 1. I don't like the PS1 controller. They're too small for my hands. They are uncomfortable. I don't like the triggers. No. So I can now use a wide variety of my controllers with the PS3 to play PS3, PS2, and PS1 games the way that I prefer them. That is what is exciting about this project, but there's more. The supported platforms are original Xbox, PS3, Nintendo Switch docked, which I think you can plug it in to the USB-C port on the bottom, but still wired. X input, PlayStation Classic, and whatever D input is. I don't know what that is. I keep seeing it. I don't know what that means. You can change the platform with different startup button combos. And these are the wired controllers they support. These are the wireless adapters they support. These are the wireless Bluetooth controllers that they support. And there's a whole bunch of features and stuff. You can go dig into it on the GitHub that I have linked down below if you want to learn more. But you can do this with a basic Raspberry Pi Pico, just like Justin showed us, or like in this graphic over here. You can use it with the Pi Pico 2. You can do it with a Pi and an ESP32. You can do it with the Zero boards, like I'm going to do today. And that's it, apparently. But a couple of these you may have noticed are wireless. They have Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or both built into it because you can do this wirelessly. The way we're doing it today is not the wireless way. I wish I would have thought about that a little bit more, but oh well, it's not going to be a big deal for the every now and then that I do want to play PS3 with a DualSense controller. I can live with a wired controller. It's okay. Plus, like I said, PCBWay paid me for this, so that's okay with me. But in this video, you can see there are multiple ways you can do this. The world is your oyster, and it's very simple no matter how you slice it. So if you want to do it the exact way that I have it, you're going to need one of these boards. You're going to need a Zero board. You're going to need a USB port. I have 10 of them here. And you don't have to, but I recommend getting a 3D print of some housing. I will have links to this board in this case down below, as well as the link to PCBWay, because you can get both of these done by PCBWay. But you can also 3D print this yourself. And again, you don't have to get a board like this to be able to do it, but that's just the way I'm doing it. You can follow Justin's video here and just solder USB wires here, 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 and here. And that is literally all you need to do. And you'll have the exact same thing that I have, just not as clean. He even has 3D printed case for it that does make it a little bit cleaner, but you can find the firmware over here. I'm going to take this and I'm going to hold the boot button, and I'm going to, while holding the boot button, plug it in. It'll pop up with this folder, and we can drag and drop that UF2 file into this. And then once it copies over, it will eject itself, and you can just unplug it. That's that simple. The software is loaded, and we are on our way to completing this build. I will say, be careful, choose the right file in the downloads for the UF2 files. There are like 4 different versions depending on which board you use. This is the RP2040 0. Okay, I'm going to get out the necessary resistors and LED for this. This is kind of hard to find in the GitHub, so I will show you real quick, which is kind of confusing because in this graphic, he just shows that you don't need a resistor or anything like that. I don't know. But you're going to go to the hardware section, the RP2040 0 PCB, and then you're going to want to find the bill of materials right here. R3 and LED1 are optional. We are going to install them today, but I'm going to do it with hot air this time. That wasn't my issue. The reason why we're re-recording this is because instead of using USB ports like these that I will link down below that have these nice through hole options, so we can just slot it in there and it's super easy to solder down. All I had on hand were these USB ports that I stole off of a broken USB 2 hub, and they are like half height or something like that. I don't know. The pins don't even stick out very much if it all past the bottom of the USB port. So I had to do this like weird soldering thing. Even these like fat ground pins are really hard to like get in the holes. They're like not wide enough. I don't know. I did make it work with this one. And this is also a crappy 3D print because the purple filament that I got is just bad. And I don't know why I keep trying to use it. But this is how it ended up. And it's at an angle a little bit here, as you can see. But it does work. I eventually got it to solder down well, just angled poorly. So thankfully, PCBWay sends you 5 of these boards, kind of sarcastically, because I don't really need 5 of these things, but I can do it 4 more times. I can mess up 3 more times. Anyways, I got these awesome little resistor or SMD parts in a little binder here. I can just open up to the 27 ohm resistors, which are right here. And I know it's right because these are the ones I used before. Then I can go a couple pages over to the 470 ohm resistors, which are right here. Again, I can tell because it's right there. And I've used them before. I think I even have one over here that fell out. And I can't read what that tiny thing says. And that is actually all we need for this one, as my binder is opening again. These binders suck, but also they just crammed way too many of these things in this binder. So of course the rings are gonna open. But for now, we can put this in the USB port off to the side. Okay, let's zoom in here. We can put our R3 resistor down there. We have to grab a couple more of these guys. Oh my God, it's too freaking small, people. Thankfully, resistors don't have a polarity to them, but the LED does. So it is gonna be very hard to see, but there is a tiny, tiny little mark that has like a notch in it, the green lines. I don't know if this is ever gonna be viewable on the screen, but if you can see where that notch in the middle is pointing, it is pointing to the cathode, which the cathode is the negative end. And we can see that on the board, it has a rounded end, and it also has that same line, which is pointing to the cathode. So we want to put it down like that. We can also see that there is actually green marks on this left side on the LED. So the green matches up with the negative side. Now, I put all this stuff down because I'm actually going to use some of this Chip Quick solder paste. I've never used solder paste before. I have seen so many videos online, and I'm very excited to try this out. I think this is gonna be sick. I really hope so, at least. I don't know what any of this means. I'm just going to do it at like a really low, like 250C, but I'm going to squirt some on both ends here. This doesn't want to stick to the board. Oh, it wants to stick to those though. Okay. Oh man, this is going to be interesting. Is it wrong of me to assume that there is going to be some flux in these, in this solder paste? I don't know. I'm gonna have my flux on hand, and I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to turn it way down because it's like 400C, and we'll do 260. But you lose so much heat immediately leaving the gun, so I'm also going to turn the flow down way down because I don't want this to just like blow the components everywhere. All right, let's turn it up a little bit. I'm just gonna do it at 300 because low airflow and coming out of a heat gun, it's probably gonna lose some temperature. The LED already got knocked. This is just bubbling up. This is weird. Put a little flux in there, see if that does anything. It's like a bunch of little solder balls, but it's not really like heating up. It's not doing what I've seen all the videos do. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh wow, that's weird. Okay. This is really weird, but it's working, sort of. Wow. It's out of focus too. Son of a. Put way too much. All the solder connected to like this end over here. I don't know why you're out of focus, but this is really depressing. Okay. I think it worked now. I actually don't know if the LED got flipped around, but I'm gonna let all this cool down and then I'll show you the better way to do it. That ended up not being terrible. I just think that was my first time using solder paste. So it didn't turn out amazing, but we'll put this together fully in a little bit. I do want to show off doing it by hand. I have all of my SMD components down there. What I'm going to do first here is load this up with flux on all of these pads here. And I'm going to do it to like 330 to maybe even 350 because the problem here is while the solder will melt for me at like 300 degrees, there's like a coating that PCBWay puts on their boards where I just find it best to put at a high temperature and then solder will actually stick to it. And maybe instead of using solder paste, you should just do this and then use the hot air to put the components on top of that. But we're just going to do it all by hand real quick. Boom. There's one resistor. Getting it to not stick to my tweezers is hard, but we got it soldered down on one end there. I'm just going to rotate it real quick. And maybe I need to add a little bit more here. Are they perfect? No. But are they soldered down? Yes, I think. Yes, they are. Then, knowing what we know now about the cathodes and the anodes, we know that the green marks means that that is the negative, and the rounded part on this side, this left side of the board, is the negative side. So we can solder it down there like that. Once it cools down, we can go to the other side, and that should be good. I'm gonna not mess with it too much because the LEDs I've noticed like to melt pretty easily. So I'm gonna let it chill for a second while we solder down this guy, and then solder down this end. Oh, and I genuinely don't even know where that resistor went. It went flying. Oh no, it's stuck to my iron. Just kidding. Hello. I guess technically it does not matter if it's upside down or not. We don't want it to be crooked though. Okay, that was a bit of a struggle. And then we can do this side and we're good. I'm gonna look a little closer at this LED. It looks soldered, so I'm just gonna leave it. And that is how simple it is to solder it by hand. It's kind of harder, kind of easier. The last two I want to do in more of a fancy B-roll style, so I will have that played on screen if I can get the hot air to work better when I pre-apply the solder with my iron. I'll play that right now. That honestly is probably the best way to do it. But from here, we can actually move on to the next portion. I'm going to swap this one out and we'll do this one first. Since we do have a bit of solder right here on this corner, I'll also do it to this one actually real quick. I lied. I'm going to add that, and then I'm going to add some solder to just that one spot. And I'm going to take our pre-flashed board and I'm going to line it up with all of these pads so we can see a little bit of the silver sticking out on all the ends. And then I'm going to heat up that corner. and press down on this board so it's nice and flat, and it's nice and flat everywhere. And then I'm going to go on the other side, and I'll go ahead and just put flux all down this line, and we are going to attach this like that. Now that is soldered, but I'm going to add a little bit more. I like a lot of solder to really make sure that it's stuck, and it looks pretty good to me. And I'm just going to go down this entire line, and I'll do a little time lapse of me going through all of these pins and soldering them all. The flux will help us tremendously here. And all of that side looks good to me. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on this row. Oh, that is the solder paste. Not what I wanted to do. Very similar syringes. I'm gonna turn on my fan. This is gonna look horrible on camera, but oh well. And then again, over here on this other side. And there we go. It is just that simple. I'm gonna do it again to the other board real quick. Okay, and there is all of those soldered. And really, I wanted to do this one as well right now on camera, mostly because I didn't accidentally fill in any of these holes when soldering these in, but I accidentally filled that hole, which is gonna make the next step a little bit harder. So we wanna take the USB port. That's still a little warm, so I'm gonna give it a minute. We can take our board and our USB port, and we are just going to stick it through. It is that easy. It's that easy for it to fall out as well. So we'll do it upside down this time, and then we'll stick it right here like that. I'll actually get a bit of solder on my iron just to tack it down. Again, I'm going to use flux here, and I'm just going to do it on this top pin here, the smaller pins. I'm going to hold it and kind of push it flat into the USB port so we can lock it in at a point where it's actually even and like fully in. It looks slightly angled to me, but maybe I'm just going a little crazy. From here, I'm gonna put some flux down on the rest of these pins. Then I will solder these properly by heating up the pin and pushing the solder in. Why are you not working? Probably because I should have a higher temperature because this USB port is made entirely out of metal, like most USB ports. So, general rule of thumb, you're working with something that is mostly made of metal and the heat is spread easier throughout the entire thing, you're going to need to use a higher temperature when soldering. So I knocked it up to 330 and we should have no problem melting the solder now. Now I'm going to do the same thing, just add a little flux to both of these, and I will go ahead and push solder in to the pins, and it's still not really wanting to work. There's that, and eventually it's doing a 360 as I'm soldering it. There we go. Perfect. We have a bunch of flux everywhere, so I'm going to clean that up. But I'm going to try and do this other one too real quick. I do have a little bit of desolder wick left that's usable. I think it'll be easier from this side to try and remove that solder. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take my wick flux, just go boop. Nope, nope. Might have to attack it from the other side here. There we go. And solder's gone, so we can take another USB port, slot that in, do the same old thing, tack it down. I don't have enough solder there, so I'll have to add just a tinge of solder, hold it flat, tack it down, lift it to make sure it looks good, and then we can add some new solder, all of these pins. For some reason, this last pin is being a problem child once again, and somebody just set their car alarm off, put a little flux down. Seriously? Too much solder? I don't care. Get that one down. Cool. And then do this again to the big posts. We're slightly off camera here. Slightly too much solder. Don't care. It works. Jeez. And we're done. That is all you need to do for these. Even though I use no clean flux and recommend no clean flux, I definitely recommend that you actually clean up this flux since we're trying to plug. That's still freaking hot. So I'll use the other one as a prop. Since we are plugging things into this port and this port, definitely recommend you try and clean up the flux. At least try and clean up if there's any in there. But I'll zoom out a little bit. That's what we have these 3D printed cases for. We can drop our board in like this. We have our USB port sticking out there, USB-C port sticking out there, and then we drop it in like that. USB-C port, USB-A port, and then we have the button, the access to the button for boot. If we need to, I don't know, plug it in and reflash the firmware, maybe there's an updated firmware, more controllers and consoles are supported, we can just hold this button down when we plug it in the computer, drop that firmware in, boom, we're off to the races. You don't have to take this apart. But this doesn't actually have any like screw posts or anything. So I don't know if they envision you like hot gluing it, super gluing it, whatever. I'll probably end up putting some hot glue in to stick this down and hold the PCB in there. But I'm actually going to go soak these in isopropyl alcohol for a little bit. So flip to future me, well, actually old me, where I did all the other stuff that you need to know about. Sorry about the crappy audio and lighting. I'm just on the phone. But obviously we're on my PS3. We have the OGX Mini all set up, ready to go. We don't need this piece of crap. We can take my DualSense controller, USB-C to USB-A. So you plug the controller into the USB-A port, and then the USB-C port into whatever console you're gonna plug it into. So you can plug it in, and it'll say, at least on PS3, an unknown USB device has been connected. And it won't do anything because it defaults to the OGX box, like I said earlier. So for PS3, we are going to hold start, which is the options button. Hold that and hold left on the D-pad, and eventually the OGX Mini light will change briefly to red and back to green. And look at that, we're all good. The fans on my PS3 kicked up, but this is all me, baby. Finally, I can play PS3 comfortably. All right, let's go back to the computer, check out the web app. Honestly, I'm not exactly sure how we're supposed to do this. I'm just gonna plug it in the same way that it was plugged into my PS3, see if that does anything. Oh yeah, and then we will press and hold the two bumpers as well as start until our lights change on this bad boy. The lights did not change, but we heard the dings of Windows, so I assume we're good to go to the web app. Yeah, connect. Beautiful. Wow. And we can even check our joysticks that still look awesome. We can change all the dead zone stuff. Very nice. Check our triggers. Our triggers are good. And then I guess we can change the mapping however we want. Since I'm pretty much only going to be using this for PS3, there's really nothing for me to change. But I'm assuming that you can just pick, let's just say PS3 on profile 1 and change all the settings how we want, save the profile, and that would be what it would use as the button layout and stuff when we connect it to the PS3. I'm sure you can change it for the different modes. For some reason you're wanting to use this with your Switch, then you can change the buttons to be the Switch layout, and you could save it just for the Switch versus having it for everything, and then you'd have to change when you go between PlayStation and Xbox and Switch. So yeah, that's it for this video.